Chapter 57:57. As Xiren's voice fell, Shangwaning seemed to have found her backbone. She wiped the tears off her face and nodded frantically. That's right. Maybe the solution is in this pavilion. There must be a way. There must be a way. Shangwaning quickly rushed into the pavilion. Because she was too anxious, she stumbled and almost fell. She leaned on the edge of the table and looked at the treasure on the table that was shining with a golden light. It was something that shone like gold. It was shaped like a stone, and a rich metal attribute was spreading from it. Even if she was just looking at it, she could feel the metal attribute constantly fusing into her body. Shangwaning picked up the stone on the table. If it was any other time, she would definitely be careful of the various dangers in this pavilion. However, she could not care about all of this now. She urgently wanted to find a way to remove the metal attribute energy in the lake. Even if it meant that she would die, she would not hesitate. Picking up the golden stone, Shangwaning tried to change the lake water. However, she found that the stone had no effect on the lake other than the rich metal attribute. No, why not? What should I do? Shangwaning was in so much pain that she was going crazy. Her tears could not stop falling. She looked around the pavilion, and her body could not stop trembling because of nervousness. When Xiren was also frantically looking for the mechanism in the pavilion. However, no matter how hard they looked, they could not find any mechanism at all. For a moment, Xiren was completely panicking. This situation made him feel incomparably devastated. Bewitching and the others were risking their lives for him, but he could not do anything. This feeling was really too devastating. It can't be. It can't be. When Xiren shouted hysterically. He couldn't believe it. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could feel Xiren and Shangwaning's despair. A trace of sadness emerged in their hearts, but they did not regret it. As long as Xiren and Ying were safe, that was enough. After seeing this scene, everyone fell into silence. This was something that no one had expected. Even if many people did not know Bewitching and the others, they could not help but feel sad at this moment. It was really a pity that such outstanding people had fallen like this. Star Stomper, what should we do? The cultivators from the Lin family and the D family panicked. They could not imagine the consequences. However, Lin Taxing had already fallen into silence. His spirit was tense, and he kept praying in his heart. He believed that there would be a turn for the better. Previously, the patriarch had said that Bewitching and Hongzhuang both had great opportunities. As long as they didn't encounter any big problems, they would definitely be able to turn misfortune into blessings. It was just that was the current situation a big problem. Xiao Sou and Jun Lingshuan couldn't help but feel excited. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were dead, their biggest stumbling block would disappear. When they thought of this, they couldn't help but feel happy. The two of them seemed to have gained more strength as they continued to swim towards the shore. As long as they could survive, they would be the biggest winners. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not give up because of this. Even if their physical condition was extremely bad, they would not give up until the very last moment. So difficult. Chapter 57:58. Go to sleep. You won't be in so much pain when you're asleep. A warm voice rang in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. As long as she closes her eyes, she will be able to escape from this endless pain. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly closed her eyes. She was simply too tired, and she wanted a rest. Just as she was about to close her eyes, a familiar and incomparably sentimental face appeared in her mind. When she had first met him, he had been dressed in golden robes and had bright eyes and white teeth. He had been as calm as the wind, and his smile had stunned the world. Those warm eyes, that doting smile, that broad chest, everything about him had made her yearn for him. No, I can't leave him like this. I had said that I want to be with him for the rest of my life. A hint of clarity returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black, phoenix-like eyes. She pulled herself together. I can't die like this. An aura of despair enveloped Di Beichun and the others. Every movement of their bodies was accompanied by endless agony. Countless sharp blades had almost pierced them into sieves. All of their defenses had been reduced to nothing after the power had been reduced. Perhaps this would be their final resting place. Just then, a whirlpool suddenly appeared at the bottom of the lake. This whirlpool had appeared out of nowhere, but the power of its suction was exceptionally terrifying. The powerful whirlpool immediately swept Bailey Hongzhuang and the others into the bottom of the lake. They did not even have the chance to struggle. A wave of dizziness washed over them. They felt as if they were being swirled around by the current, as if there was a black hole at the bottom of the lake. It was sucking them in without any explanation. The powerful water current slammed into their bodies, causing their injuries to worsen. This sudden turn of events attracted everyone's attention. No one had expected such a change to occur at the bottom of the lake. Everyone was dumbfounded. This lake isn't very deep. Besides, isn't the bottom of the lake a flat surface? Why would a whirlpool suddenly appear? As one cultivator broke the deadlock, the rest of the cultivators returned to their senses. The surroundings suddenly became very noisy. That's right. That whirlpool seemed to have appeared out of nowhere and sucked Bewitching and the others away. Look, the bottom of the lake seems to have returned to normal. This lake is really strange. I'm afraid it will be difficult to come out alive after being sucked in. Everyone sighed faintly. Not to mention that the lake water was so strange, just the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were riddled with holes. Even if there really was an opportunity under the water, a little test would probably turn them into ashes. Xiren, they're gone. Shangguan Yingying stared blankly at the lake that had regained its calm. She rubbed her red and swollen eyes and hurriedly said, "Does this mean that they still have a chance to live?" Xiren was silent for a while before he nodded. That's right. Beichin and the others have always had the ability to turn misfortunes into blessings. As long as there was no result, it meant that they were still alive. Yes, they must still be alive. Shangguan Yingying nodded heavily. They definitely will. However, the hatred in her heart for Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou was constantly deepening. If it weren't for those two hateful guys, Beichin and the others wouldn't have tried and wouldn't have fallen into such danger. If they had really encountered an accident, they would have destroyed the Jun and Xiao families at all costs. Lin Taxing suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He couldn't help but recall the scene when the family head spoke. Chapter 57-59. Apart from a cultivator's own talent and strength, there was something else that was very important. As the saying goes, heroes are made of circumstances. Luck often had a lot to do with it as well. Beichin was able to rely on his own strength to come to the upper realm and escape the fatal situation back then. It was clear that his luck was very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang had encountered many sources of luck after coming to the upper realm. She was also a person with great luck. Generally, cultivators whose luck was not as good as theirs would find it very difficult to compete with them. As long as they did not encounter any major problems, they would definitely be able to turn danger into safety. When he first heard this, he thought that this was too profound and could not understand at all. However, after seeing the scene just now, he suddenly understood. If it had been any other cultivator, they would have died long ago under such circumstances. There would not have been any changes at all. However, this vortex had suddenly appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichin. Although many people believed that this vortex could be fatal, he felt that this might be the turning point. There was an additional variable from the original situation of certain death. At least there was a slight possibility. He did not know whether Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichin could return, but as long as there was a glimmer of hope, it was still possible. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were dizzy from the swirling water. They felt like they were going to vomit their organs out. Bang! Bang, bang, bang. After the first sound was heard, several sounds were heard one after another. Bailey Hongzhuang fell heavily to the ground. Her body, which was riddled with holes, had long been severely injured. Even though she had been injured often before, she had never been injured so severely. In fact, she couldn't even move an inch. Her entire body was in excruciating pain. It was as if her body was no longer under her control. Her head was dizzy. She could not even take a careful look at everything around her. Beichin, Yin, Bailey Hongzhuang called out with all her might. She could feel the connection between Ling, and Jiang Wenyin, but she did not know if Beichen and Jiang Wenyin were there too. Yes, Di Beichen seemed to have used up all his strength to spit out a single word. Jiang Wenyin also let out a muffled groan. His entire body felt as if it had fallen apart. Even his breathing was accompanied by unbearable pain. After hearing the familiar voice, Bailey Hongzhuang felt relieved. Even if his body was in a terrible state, his heart was at ease. At the very least, they had survived for the time being. But soon, Bailey Hongzhuang heard another muffled groan. This one belonged to Jun Lingxuan. It seemed that all of them had been swept here together. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head with difficulty. As expected, she saw Jun Lingxuan and Xiao So. At this moment, both of them were badly mutilated, lying limply on the ground, as if they no longer had the slightest strength to resist. If she still had a bit of strength left, she would definitely take advantage of this opportunity to kill these two fellows. But now, it was extremely difficult for her to even move her fingers, let alone sit up. This thought flashed across the minds of both parties present, but no one had the strength to move. They were all lying on the ground. Compared to when they were in the lake earlier, the current situation was much more comfortable. Even if there were pills in their storage rings, no one could retrieve them now. Helpless, everyone could only rely on cultivation to recover. Chapter 5760. Following the disappearance of Di Beichen and the others, the crowd turned their attention to Xiren and Shangguan Yingying after a heated discussion. They had finally entered the pavilion in the middle of the lake with great difficulty, and they did not know what kind of treasures were in there. They had spent so much effort and might have even caused Di Beichen and the others to lose their lives. It would be a pity if they only got an ordinary reward. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying found it difficult to calm down for a moment. Originally, they had been hoping to successfully obtain the treasure in the pavilion, but after all that had happened, their original eagerness had completely disappeared. If they could choose again, they would rather not have everything here. After a long while, the two of them finally calmed down. They believed that Di Beichen and the others would not fall so easily. They would definitely have a chance to meet them again. Yingying, we can't let Beichun and the others down. Xiren's expression was firm, and his red eyes were filled with determination. No matter what, he wanted to become stronger. If there was a chance, he wanted to fight side by side with Di Beichun. However, if there was no chance, he could only avenge Beichun if he became strong enough. Shangguan Yingying wiped the tears from her face and nodded seriously. That's right. The two of them looked at the golden stone again, and the rich metal attribute energy continued to flow into their bodies. Even if they did not know what it was, they were certain that it would be very helpful to their cultivation. After realizing that this thing was not dangerous to their bodies, the two of them began to absorb it with peace of mind. Just as the two of them had absorbed the stone, a golden light suddenly flashed like the sun. It was so bright that no one dared to look directly at it. When the golden light gradually dissipated, the crowd looked at the pavilion in the middle of the lake again and found that Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had disappeared without a trace. Where was the figure in the red pavilion? The crowd was dumbfounded again. It disappeared again? This lake was really strange. Whether it was in the lake water or in the pavilion, they had all disappeared. Could it be that they went to the same place? If that is the case, then all of this will be interesting. However, I feel that Xiren and Jian Xiaotian have most likely obtained the legacy and disappeared. Di Beichen and the others are probably not that lucky. Lin Taxing was equally stunned. He had thought that since Beichun was not around, he would have to take care of One and Xiren. He did not expect such a scene to happen now. He did not know when they would meet again. 7 people were lying on the cold ground, their clothes already stained with blood. If someone came here, they would definitely think that these were 7 corpses. However, upon closer inspection, they would be able to feel the slight rise and fall of their chests. Clearly, they hadn't died yet. As Nebula Realm cultivators, everyone's recovery ability was undoubtedly very fast. Unfortunately, the metal energy from before was too sharp, and they had stayed in the lake for so long. Not only did this energy pierce through their skin, but it also entered their bodies. Under the influence of this power, the speed of recovery of his injuries was also much slower. At first, everyone was worried that there would be some kind of danger inside. Since they could not move at all, once there was danger, only death would await them. Fortunately, such a thing did not happen. Chapter 5761. Although their injuries were slowly recovering, everyone was finally able to speak after 2 days. The metal-type energy in this lake is so strong. If Ying and Xiren could really obtain the inheritance, their control over metal-type energy would increase greatly. Thinking of Shangwan, Ying, and Xiren's painful expressions, a warm current flowed through her heart. If they knew that everyone was still alive, they would definitely be very happy. The cultivator who set up this pavilion was very powerful. Just giving them some pointers would be a great reward. How powerful were the cultivators in the Immortal region? They already knew when they were in the abandoned Immortal Forest. Although Senior Yu only let them practice their swordsmanship and did not give them any pointers, they knew that Senior Yu's true strength was extremely terrifying. If Yao Xiang could really receive Senior Yu's pointers, they would only be qualified if they mastered this move. However, up until now, they had yet to truly master this move. After this, I really have to hand it to you guys. Jiang Wenyin could not help but sigh. First, you almost lost your life for them. Now, instead of thinking about your own situation, you're still thinking about them. Although it was a sarcastic tone, everyone could hear the gentleness in his voice. If they were in your shoes, Xiren and Ying would do the same. Bi Beichen smiled faintly. They had grown up together, and they were no longer ordinary friends, but real family. Jiang Wenyin was silent, but his heart yearned even more. However, he now had the chance to join. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' words, Jun Lingshuan could not help but mock. You guys are really dreaming. It's good enough that one and Xiren can obtain the treasures in the pavilion. You want to obtain the inheritance? Dream on. That's right. Xiao Suo mocked. She did not think that one and Xiren could obtain the inheritance. If they really did, it would be a terrifying increase in strength. How do you know? Bailey Hongzhuang retorted. It's so difficult to reach the pavilion. Have you guys encountered such a difficult obstacle before? I feel that this is a senior selecting a disciple. Don't say sour grapes when you can't eat them. I think so too. Jiang Wenyin agreed. If a checkpoint like this doesn't count as an assessment, then the requirements here are too high. Jun Lingshuan and Xiao Suo snorted coldly and fell into silence. 2 mouths couldn't win against 5 mouths, so it was better to just shut up. At this moment, their feelings were extremely complicated. Normally, it was already very difficult for the two of them to go up against Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, let alone Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now that everyone could not move, it was naturally peaceful. But once everyone recovered their fighting strength, the situation would be terrible. The other party would definitely attack them without hesitation. It would be too difficult for them to escape this calamity. In fact, they had been thinking about this question for the past 2 days. If they couldn't find a way to escape, then the moment Bailey Hongzhuang and the others regained their mobility, they would undoubtedly be dead. An indescribable gloominess spread throughout their hearts. The heavens were really unfair. Wouldn't it have been better if they had allowed Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to die at the bottom of the lake? But now, the two of them had to be dragged into this matter, causing the situation to take a huge turn. Chapter 5762. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally knew that after Deng Rao regained his mobility, this was the best opportunity to kill Jun Lingshuan and Xiao Shui. Perhaps this was a heaven-sent opportunity. If they took advantage of this opportunity to get rid of these two people, the Jun family and Xiao family would definitely suffer a big blow. Although they didn't know whether Shu Yu would still choose to stand on this side after losing her disciple, it was always beneficial to them. Therefore, after saying a few words, everyone continued to cultivate and heal their injuries. The sooner they could regain their mobility, the sooner they could solve this disaster. So, we have to hurry up and find a way to leave here before they recover. Jun Lingxuan transmitted his voice. Xiao Shou replied, I understand, but we don't even know where we are right now. I'm afraid it won't be easy to leave. There's no other way. I don't believe that the heavens really want me to die. Maybe there will be other opportunities. Jun Lingxuan's eyes burned with unwillingness. He was also a person with an opportunity. If the heavens didn't want Bewitching to die, would they let him die? He didn't believe it. Time passed slowly. After everyone eliminated more than half of the metal attribute power in their bodies also regained their mobility. Immediately, everyone took out medicinal pills and took them. Relying on cultivation to heal their injuries was undoubtedly slow. With this medicinal pill, everyone's injuries could be quickly healed. After Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou took the medicinal pills, they rushed to the other side in a defensive posture, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with fear. Since everyone came here by accident, why don't we temporarily put down our hatred and learn how to get out of here? Jun Lingxuan's voice was slightly heavy. His still pale face revealed a bit of awkwardness and reluctance. Even if he knew that his words were not very persuasive, he had to try because there was no other way. After Bailey Hongzhuang stood up, she could clearly see the situation around her. It was a very dark and secluded place, surrounded by rocks. The rocks were black and moist. They were in a square space, and there was a faint light in front of them. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou were standing there. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that the two of them must be trying to escape from the front. However, it was impossible to pass through there, so they stood there awkwardly to discuss. Do you think such words are useful to us? Bewitching didn't answer. Instead, he asked a question. More people means more ways. If you were trapped here, won't it be useless? Xiao Shou was a little nervous, and her voice was filled with panic. We don't mind taking your lives first, then we'll figure out a way ourselves. Bali Yanche's voice was cold. What useful ideas can you two idiots come up with? As soon as these words came out, Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou's expressions turned extremely ugly. Don't force us. If you push us too hard and we really explode, you'll also suffer. Jun Lingxuan's eyes were malicious, full of resentment and threat. He wouldn't admit defeat so easily. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. They could roughly guess the meaning of Jun Lingxuan's words. Then why don't you try? Ling Er's expressionless face was filled with coldness. Chapter 5763. Hearing this, Xiao Shou seemed to have made up her mind and nodded heavily. Indeed, they had no way to retreat. The dangerous situation that Master had mentioned before was roughly like this. If they couldn't defeat or repel the other party this time, they really couldn't go back. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already made up their minds. This time, no matter what, they wouldn't let the other party go. With a move of their figures, everyone attacked Jun Lingxuan and his companion without hesitation. Even if their injuries hadn't healed and they had only regained their mobility, their killing intent hadn't decreased in the slightest. Since they were destined to be enemies, they had to kill them as soon as possible to avoid more variables. After Jun Lingxuan noticed this scene, they were also nervous. They clearly felt that there was a light behind them. It should be a path, but they didn't know why they couldn't walk through it. So, delay for half a minute. I'll break through quickly. Jun Lingxuan was full of confidence in himself. He had already received the opportunity to break through, but he had been suppressing it recently. Now, if he wanted to break through, it would be a simple matter. Xiao Shou nodded slightly. Although it was very difficult for her to resist for a moment with her strength, her injuries were actually lighter than Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Her recovery was also better than theirs. Only Jiang Wenyan's situation should be similar to hers, but he was just helping. She felt that Jiang Wenyan might not really use his full strength. Everyone rushed forward and stabbed the other party with their swords without hesitation. For them, if they didn't have to break through, then they wouldn't. It was best to take advantage of Jun Lingxuan's breakthrough to deal with the other party. Otherwise, once he broke through, it would be difficult for them to deal with him again. For such a guy, It was really not worth it for them to break through early. Ding ding ding. Everyone's attack speed was actually not very fast. Compared to their usual strength, it was really far worse. Xiao Shou blocked in front of Jun Lingxuan and blocked everyone's attack with her sword. Although everyone's strength was not as strong as before, and their speed was also weakened, their fighting spirit was still there. Relying on Xiao Shou alone, it was impossible to resist everyone's attack. Almost in a face-to-face confrontation, Xiao Shou was already injured. However, she still held on. If she couldn't stall for time now, then it would really be a dead end. Bailey Hongzhuang's sword violently stabbed out and mercilessly stabbed toward Xiao Shou. It's time to end the grudges between them. Xiao Shou's mind. Just when she thought she was going to lose her life, suddenly, another sword appeared and knocked Bailey Hongzhuang's sword away. Then, she saw a familiar figure appear beside her. Jun Lingxuan, you've broken through? Xiao Shou looked at Jun Lingxuan excitedly. She saw that Jun Lingxuan's injuries had all disappeared. It was obvious that he had recovered from his breakthrough. Jun Lingxuan nodded and looked confidently at Xiao Shou. Let me do it. Looking at Jun Lingxuan, Xiao Shou's eyes flashed with infatuation and her lips curled into a smile. Jun Lingxuan turned to look at Di Beichun and the rest. Di Beichun, luck isn't always on your side. Chapter 5764. Jiang Wenyan was also shocked when he saw that Jun Lingxuan had fully recovered from his injuries. If that was the case, the advantage between the two parties might really change. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not expect Jun Lingxuan to break through so quickly. Usually, a breakthrough would take some time. Even if they broke through the shackles, they would still need to stabilize their cultivation. However, Jun Lingxuan had successfully broken through in just a few breaths. Could it be that there was such a change after reaching the Radiant Moon Realm? Thinking about how Zhong Limu had broken through while sleeping, perhaps it was because he had suppressed it, and the breakthrough was completed in the blink of an eye. However, the current situation was extremely disadvantageous for them. Jun Lingxuan gave Xiao Shou a look before attacking Di Beichun. Among everyone, he hated Di Beichun the most. As long as he could take Di Beichun's life with his own hands, just the thought of it was enough to make him excited. Di Beichun, be careful, Jiang Wenyan shouted. Di Beichun dodged Jun Lingxuan's attack. In just one exchange, he could feel that Jun Lingxuan's strength was much stronger than before. This difference was far greater than the difference between the levels of the Nebula Realm. Thinking about it, this was the advantage of breaking through after suppressing it. If it was an ordinary cultivator who had just broken through to the Radiant Moon Realm, they would definitely not be able to compare. Ding ding ding. Jun Lingxuan's every move was ruthless, attacking Di Beichun's vital points from tricky angles. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest went up together, but their condition was much worse than usual due to their injuries. Even if they worked together, they could only block Jun Lingxuan's attacks. Di Beichun's heart sank. The current environment had the most water element, and there was very little dark energy. He could not use the dark energy to summon help. If this continued, he could only break through. Although he felt that it was not worth it, there was no other way. After Jun Lingxuan broke through, Xiao Shou also broke through. As long as they could kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. So what if they didn't continue to suppress them? Everything was worth it. Moreover, they had broken through to the Radiant Moon Realm. Once they left this place, they would be able to fight for more resources. Damn it, Xiao Shou has also broken through. Jiang Wenyan was shocked. He could not understand how Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou could break through so smoothly. Didn't he need an opportunity to break through? Why was he able to break through immediately when he wanted to? Moreover, this breakthrough was so fast and simple that it completely overturned his understanding. Although he also felt that he would soon break through to the Radiant Moon tier, it would not be as easy as these two. Bailey Hongzhuang, this day next year will be the day you die. Xiao Shou would charge towards Bailey Hongzhuang with a ferocious expression. The murderous intent that had accumulated in her heart all this time had completely exploded. She wanted to kill this woman who had taken everything from her with her own hands, and then take it back with her own hands. Sensing the threat, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed, and she immediately prepared to break through. A tyrannical aura spread. She had broken through to the radiant moon tier. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou were surprised to see that other people had broken through. Chapter 5765. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was just about to break through, was shocked when she sensed this aura. She turned to look at Jiang Wenyan. No one had expected Jiang Wenyan to suddenly break through at a time like this. This was truly unexpected. Jiang Wenyan was overjoyed. He had hoped that he could break through as soon as possible so that he could get everyone out of their predicament. Although he had been seriously injured this time, it was a blessing in disguise. He could feel that he was getting closer to breaking through. Just a moment ago, he had suddenly broken through. Jiang Wenyan blocked Xiao Sou's attack. His stern face was cold and detached. Xiao Sou, this situation is not certain yet. Jiang Wenyan, you may be on friendly terms with them, but I've known you longer than they have. At a time like this, there's no need for you to stand on their side. Jun Lingxuan looked at Jiang Wenyan and persuaded him. You only care about benefits. As long as you kill them, I'll give you double the benefits. You must know that as long as they disappear, the Di family and the Lin family will fall at our hands sooner or later. Xiao Sou's expression was calm. There was no such thing as an eternal friend. At a time like this, betrayal was the most common occurrence. She believed that Jiang Wenyan would not refuse. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned. Even if Jiang Wenyan were to join Jun Lingxuan's side, they might still be able to deal with him. However, if Jiang Wenyan were to really do that, it would only prove that they had misjudged him. Hee. Jiang Wenyan suddenly chuckled. His gaze drifted for a moment before it landed on Jun Lingxuan again. This time, there was an unprecedented seriousness in his eyes. Jun Lingxuan, I was indeed like that in the past. However, after meeting them, I've suddenly grown tired of my previous way of doing things. Benefits are indeed important, but now I feel that sacrificing my life for my friends is also a very cool thing to do. Jiang Wenyan's features had always been delicate and pretty. He had always faced the world with a gentle look. However, at this moment, there was less hypocritical gentleness on his face and more seriousness. His pitch-black eyes burned with raging flames, completely igniting the hearts of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. All along, they had thought that Jiang Wenyan was a friend worth befriending. Now, everything had proven that their judgment was correct. Jun Lingxuan looked at Jiang Wenyan in disbelief. He found it hard to believe that such childish words would come out of Jiang Wenyan's mouth. Risking my life for my brother? Jun Lingxuan shook his head and looked at Xiao Sou. Then, he turned his head and said with a gloomy expression, Jiang Wenyan, don't be childish. Do you think you're reading a martial arts novel? You are the young master of the Jiang clan. If your father knew that you would say such things, he would definitely be extremely disappointed in you. Perhaps he will be disappointed in me, but as long as I'm not disappointed, it will be fine. Jiang Wenyan smiled faintly. So, Jun Lingxuan, take this. Jun Lingxuan secretly spat, his heart filled with unspeakable anger. These damned bastards could actually make Jiang Wenyan's sacrifice so much for them. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it at all. Why? Why did all of this happen? He really wanted to ask God why a guy like Di Beichun could make everyone sacrifice so much for him. Jun Lingxuan didn't realize that behind his annoyance was his crazy jealousy. Chapter 5766. No problem. Jiang Wenyan patted his chest confidently. Jun Lingxuan did not say anything else after seeing that there was no turning back. Even if Jiang Wenyan had broken through, it did not mean that the situation had changed. At most, they could just kill Jiang Wenyan together. The battle between the two sides started again. The sound of weapons clashing was clear and loud in this quiet environment. Just as everyone was fighting, suddenly, a pleasant sound of a zither was heard. The sound of the zither was especially crisp and pleasant in the already quiet environment. Coupled with the echo, it was like music from the heavens, moving one's heart. The crisp and pleasant sound of the zither was full of bitterness and a trace of yearning. However, upon hearing this reply, everyone couldn't help but feel a trace of sadness in their hearts. They couldn't help but shed tears. Everyone stopped their attacks and turned to look in the direction of the sound. They had always thought that there was nothing here, but now it seemed that this was not the case. Although they did not know why it did not appear before, it was obvious that it had appeared now. Everyone looked ahead cautiously. At this time, no one was in the mood to continue fighting. The most important thing was how to deal with the situation in front of them. No matter how pleasant the sound of the zither was, everyone's face was filled with a trace of seriousness, and their hearts were even more cautious. The sound came from there. Bewitching pointed to the front. That was the place where Jun Lingxuan had been preparing to escape. Since they could not get through, but the sound of the zither was coming, it was really strange. Jun Lingxuan's heart was also filled with horror. Thinking back to the situation in the lake, the sudden appearance of the whirlpool, all of this was extremely strange. If all of this was done by the owner of the zither, then this person's strength must be very terrifying. Even if everyone present joined forces, they might not be able to leave safely. Bewitching, let's put aside the matter between us for the time being and observe the situation first. What do you think? Jun Lingxuan said. Bewitching glanced at Jun Lingxuan indifferently. You're lucky. As soon as he said this, Jun Lingxuan could not help but curse. Every time this guy spoke, he had the urge to beat him to death. However, there was nothing he could do. We came here because we heard the zither music. Do you think this is the owner of the pavilion in the middle of the lake? Jiang Wenyan looked ahead and could only see a beam of light. He couldn't see clearly what was in front of him. In his opinion, encountering such a situation in such a quiet and enclosed place was not a good thing. It is indeed possible. Bali Yanche nodded. I think this zither sound is similar to what I heard before. Why don't we go ahead and take a look? Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and said, We don't have any way out. If we want to leave this place, I'm afraid we can only go from the front. Let's go take a look then, Bewitching said. He wanted to see what was going on ahead. Everyone walked forward together. This time, when they got close, they walked in without a hitch. When we were here before, we couldn't walk in at all. Now we can suddenly walk through. Xiao Shou was stunned. Jun Lingxuan took Xiao Shou's hand and said in a low voice, This place is very mysterious. We can't tell what kind of danger there will be. In short, be careful and don't leave the group. Chapter 5767. As everyone walked towards the light, they realized that the path was much longer than they had imagined. The beam of light looked very close, but it was very far away. As everyone got closer, the sound of the zither became clearer. Most importantly, as they moved forward, the area became wider and wider. The place they were in before was like an underground cave. It was simple and plain, and it carried the power of nature. However, the place they were in now was obviously man-made. The further they went, the more magnificent the environment became. It was like a palace, bright and dazzling and extraordinarily gorgeous. Standing here, everyone even suspected that everything they had seen before was an illusion. How could there be such a huge difference between the two places? What is this place? Jiang Wenyan was stunned. Could this be the world under the lake? Everyone looked at each other. No one could find the answer. Although this was the easiest answer, the lake was obviously not as big as this underground place. The decorations here are extremely luxurious. In addition to the whirlpool from before, I don't know anything else. The only thing I can be sure of is that the owner of this place must be very powerful. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone looked at each other. This was also what they were most worried about. Sister, don't worry. Maybe we can find the mysterious inheritance here. Bali Yin Che smiled faintly and eased the tense atmosphere. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said with a smile, What you said is also possible. Previously, when they were in the mystery realm, Didn't they also find the inheritance under such circumstances? The cultivators here were very likely from the celestial realm. Then, the inheritance was even more impressive. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou quietly looked at each other. If the inheritance really existed, then no matter what, they couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang and the others take it away. Following the sound of the zither, everyone finally saw a graceful figure in the spacious hall. They saw a woman with skin as white as snow, wearing a red dress. Her long hair was like a waterfall, soft like black satin. The red hair accessories added even more radiance to her. Her exquisite features were impeccable. Every frown and smile moved people's souls. What a beautiful woman! Everyone could not help but sigh in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling who were present, were also extremely beautiful. Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to be able to captivate the birds and beasts, overshadowing the moon and putting the flowers to shame. Her beauty was confident and flamboyant, and her delicate facial features were like that of a fairy, revealing a trace of heroic spirit, making her unforgettable. Linger's beauty, on the other hand, carried a sense of alienation and indifference. It was a kind of ethereal beauty, just like a cold beauty. The woman in front of him was beautiful and flirtatious, like an enchantress. Her fox-like eyes were curled into a charming arc, and her fiery figure was without a doubt. The fair skin on her chest, coupled with her bright red dress, made her look even more charming and alluring. However, at this moment, there was a trace of sadness on her face as she played the zither. She seemed to have endless longing and wanted to share her feelings with her lover. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others appear, the woman stopped playing the zither, and a look of joy appeared on her face. With that smile, everything around him seemed to have lost its luster. "Sir, you're here." Her soft and gentle voice made one's heart go soft. Perhaps it was the best description of a person like her. Even her voice was extremely seductive. Linger's gaze unconsciously fell on by Li Yanche. Even if they did not enter this illusion, they could roughly guess the content of the environment from the expressions on everyone's faces. This must be a dream full of romantic encounters. A fiery, passionate, and charming beauty took the initiative to throw herself into his arms. Just by thinking about it, one could understand the scene. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. If he could find himself in this illusion, she believed that Di Beichen could resist this temptation. Chapter 5769. Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to wake Di Beichen up. Generally speaking, if one was trapped in such an illusion for a long time, it would not end well. If possible, it would be better to leave as soon as possible. "Beichen, wake up." However, no matter how Bailey Hongzhuang called out to Di Beichen, he was still trapped in the dream and could not leave at all. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. She did not find it strange. She had guessed that it would not be so simple, but she still wanted to try. Illusions were often very realistic, making it impossible for people to realize that they were in an illusion. If one could not see through it on their own, or if the outside world destroyed it, it would be impossible to leave. Just the illusions set up by the powerhouses of the upper realm were already very difficult to break through, let alone the illusions set up by the powerhouses of the immortal domain. It seemed that it would be very difficult for everyone to leave this illusion. Ordinary men are not willing to wake up from this illusion. It's useless even if you call out. Xiao Shou curled her lips. "Do you think Di Beichen is really that sincere to you? You can tell a time like this. Beichen is sincere to Hongzhuang. Don't try to sow discord here," Linger said coldly. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xiao Shou. "It seems that you know men quite well. Do you think Jun Lingxuan can't pass this test? Ordinary men are like that." Xiao Shou's expression was calm. As long as a man is capable, having 3 wives and 4 concubines is not a small number. How many men would reject this kind of throwing oneself into their arms? Among the men here, I'm afraid that no one can escape. Looking at Xiao Shou's expression, which seemed to have seen through everything, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but shake her head. In her eyes, love was the most loyal thing in the world. She understood that Xiao Sou's situation was the majority, but she did not want to be part of this majority. She believed that Beichen also understood this point. Even if what you said makes a lot of sense, I still believe that Beichen wouldn't. Xiao Sou looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She could feel the strong confidence emanating from the latter, and the smile on her lips was inexplicably dazzling. She did not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang could still be so confident at this time. At least, she didn't. Then just wait and see. The truth will tell you everything. Xiao Sou sneered. She had seen too many situations like this in her family. Every woman thought that they could obtain the one and only love, but it turned out to be nothing more than their own fantasy. Of course, there were also some men who did not marry anyone else. That was because their conditions were not as good as that of the first wife, so they did not have the courage. Even if it was Jun Lingxuan, she could not guarantee that he would not have a concubine in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling looked at each other and did not say anything about this situation. Xiao Sou had already believed that it was normal for men to have multiple wives. This was already a kind of tragedy, and it was useless to say anything more. Just when the three of them were waiting for the four to come out of the illusion, the four suddenly moved. They saw the four of them walking forward together. The expressions on their faces were still somewhat similar, but it could be vaguely seen that there were some differences. They haven't come out of the illusion yet. Let's follow them and see what they're going to do. Bailey Hongzhuang said as she followed them. As the four of them gradually moved forward, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also saw the situation here clearly. Chapter 5770. Bright red, bright and dazzling. Judging from the direction that Di Beichen and the others were walking, their destination was the red bed. Noticing the bed, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood the real situation. If they walked on it, it meant that this illusory realm is really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. I've entered illusory realms before, but after entering, people were usually still in the same place. However, they actually kept walking forward. This kind of feeling feels like it's real. Hongzhuang, is it possible that something like this happened? Ling thought for a moment before saying, actually, that woman hasn't disappeared. It's just that we can't see her, but they can see her. As soon as this was said, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Sei Wu were both surprised. After thinking about it carefully and connecting it to the reactions of the four people, they suddenly felt that all this was very likely. If that was really the case, then this method was really beyond their understanding. Look, there seems to be something on the bed. Xiao Sou pointed at the bed. There was a storage ring on the bed. Because it was red, no one had noticed it before. Only after taking a closer look did they realize it. Could there be some kind of treasure in this storage ring? Xiao Hei came out of the contract space. Previously, because Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to go to the bottom of the lake, he was worried that Xiao Hei wouldn't be able to withstand it, so he recalled her. However, because Bailey Hongzhuang's condition was so terrible that he couldn't even summon her back from the contract space. Now that he had recovered a little, he summoned the little guy back. Seeing the storage ring, Xiao Hei's eyes lit up. As a money grubber, she would never give up on any possibility of getting rich. The storage ring of an immortal region cultivator. Just thinking about it was an incredible reward. Previously, when they were on the battlefield, they saw so many storage rings, but they couldn't take a single one. This storage ring was here. They might be able to get it. Xiao Sei Wu's eyes were also burning. She was now in urgent need of precious cultivation resources to improve her cultivation. Almost without hesitation, Xiao Sou quickly stepped forward, wanting to grab the storage ring on the bed. She definitely couldn't give Bailey Hongzhuang any chance to surpass her. When she saw Xiao Sou's action, Ling immediately tried to stop her, but Bailey Hongzhuang stopped her. Bailey Hongzhuang shook his head. Let her be. Why? Ling frowned. If this opportunity fell into Xiao Sou's hands, it wouldn't be good for them. You'll know. Hearing this, Xiao Hei Hongzhuang, Ling, Xiao Hei Hongzhuang, and saw Xiao Hei Hongzhuang. No matter how hard she tried, it was useless. This situation was no different from when she had tried to escape with Junling Xuan. If it's really an inheritance, why would Master let someone who hasn't passed the test get it so easily? Bailey Hongzhuang raised his eyebrows. Based on the current situation, he could determine that only these 4 men could get the storage ring. They had no hope at all. Xiao Sou had been so excited that she had completely forgotten to think about this point. So that's how it is. Ling, understood. I actually panicked and forgot about this. Chapter 5771. Perhaps. Bailey Hongzhuang had a complicated look on her face. She did not know why, but the feeling in her heart grew stronger and stronger. However, no matter how hard she thought about it, she could not figure out what the problem was. What exactly is the problem? She muttered to herself. She felt that if she couldn't figure this out, something bad would definitely happen. Xiao Sou looked rather embarrassed after her failure. She remained silent with a gloomy look on her face until she noticed that Di Beichen and the others were getting closer and closer to the bed. She then spoke up. They're getting closer and closer to the bed. I think you're wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. Her clear eyes were filled with determination. How would you know until the very last moment? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had spoken, Di Beichen suddenly stopped in his tracks. The footsteps of the other 3 were still moving forward. Only Di Beichen had stopped. Seeing this, the 3 of them were shocked. Could it be that their prediction had come true so quickly? They saw Di Beichen frowning as if he was rejecting something. Unfortunately, the 3 of them could not hear what he was saying. However, they could tell from the determined look on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a small smile. It seems that her judgment was not wrong. Xiao Sou was shocked. She never thought that things would turn out this way. Previously, when Di Beichen had rejected her for Bailey Hongzhuang's sake, she had felt that Di Beichen was a hypocrite. However, she could not deny that she had felt a little jealous. At this moment, it was not just a little bit of jealousy. It was a crazy jealousy. Why? How could Di Beichen be so calm when faced with such a beautiful woman? Is Bailey Hongzhuang really that important to him? For the sake of Bailey Hongzhuang, he was willing to resist all temptations? Xiao Sou had never thought that such a situation would really happen, because such a person had never appeared in her life. Xiao Sou, it seems that your judgment is wrong. A rare smile appeared on Linger's face. Not all men are like what you said. You just haven't met one yet. Xiao Sou, who was already in shock, was also stunned after hearing this. It was as if a sharp knife had pierced her heart. It's just that you haven't met them yet. Yes, it was just that she hadn't met him yet. It turned out that such a man really existed. When she thought of this, she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with even more resentment. Because Di Beichen was her fiancé. She had been engaged since she was a child, but because of a coincidence, he had become Bailey Hongzhuang's man. Noticing the change in Xiao Sou's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could also guess what she was thinking. However, she was too lazy to care. She checked the other places in the bedchamber, wondering if there were any other treasures here. She walked to the woman's dressing table. She had to admit that everything here was so exquisite and elegant. If this woman really existed, then the man who had hidden her in this golden house must also be an extraordinary beauty. Just from this arrangement alone, she could feel that he had put in a lot of effort. He really loved this woman. However, she did not know why he could not bring her out to meet others. While Bailey Hongzhuang was looking around, Xiao Sou was still lost in her own thoughts. It was obvious that she could not figure it out. Chapter 5772. When Di Beichen woke up and looked at the environment in front of him, there was a trace of doubt between his eyebrows. What happened? Did I enter an illusion just now? Linger nodded. That's right. You were the first to break free from the illusion. The other 3 are still in the illusion. Then what happened to the 3 of you? Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands, a helpless look on her face. This illusion only works on men, So the three of us did not enter the illusion at all. I see. Bewitching felt a little strange after he understood. This illusion is really interesting. It only works on men. A beauty like that has endless charm for men, but it's not attractive to women at all. On the contrary, they might want to kill her. Xiaohei looked at Ling, and the others. That makes sense. However, no one paid any attention to it. Xiaohei pursed her lips and said, "Male master, you're quite amazing. You can still be Lu Xiaohui under such circumstances and not be tempted." Ling gave a rare smile. "That's true. Look at the three of them. They still can't break free from the illusion. This proves that you're sincere to Hong Zhuang." "Of course I'm sincere to Hong Zhuang." Bewitching raised his eyebrows and walked to Bailey Hong Zhuang's side. "Wife, I've rejected all temptations. Shouldn't you give me a reward?" Bailey Hong Zhuang was not in the mood to joke with Bewitching at this time. Her expression was serious and serious. "Beichun, don't you feel that something's wrong?" Hearing this, Bewitching stopped smiling and looked around carefully. "What do you mean?" "I don't know either." Bailey Hong Zhuang shook her head helplessly. It was precisely because she couldn't figure out what the problem was that she was particularly depressed. "I have a feeling that only men can enter this illusion. This illusion itself is a little strange. Moreover, the storage ring that appeared there also has an indescribable feeling." Vaguely, she felt that there was some kind of connection between these things. She was actually very close to discovering it, but she just couldn't pierce through this layer of paper. Only then did Bewitching notice the storage ring on the bed. "I also feel that there is something wrong. It's definitely not a good thing. Xiao So has already tried before." "She couldn't touch the ring at all," Linger added. Xiao So's expression revealed a trace of awkwardness, and she remained silent. "Beichun, tell us about the situation in the illusion so that we can figure out where the problem lies," Bailey Hong Zhuang said in a deep voice. As soon as she said this, Bewitching's expression changed a little. The look in his eyes changed slightly, and there was a hint of hesitation. "Male master, you don't have to worry about it. Based on the situation just now, we know that it must be a very erotic scene. Just tell us directly," Xiaohei teased. In response, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others also looked calm. They had already guessed this situation. "Beichun, where does she want you to go?" Bailey Hong Zhuang suddenly asked. Bewitching turned his gaze to the bed and suddenly understood a problem in his mind. "She wants us to go to that bed." Everyone's eyes were focused on the bed, and the storage ring on it was particularly eye-catching. Chapter 5773. Once the group understood the situation, they felt that the red storage ring's sparkling light had a demonic air to it. Previously, we had not noticed the appearance of this storage ring until you had arrived. Furthermore, only men can approach this place. Women cannot. This proves that this is selective. Her pitch-black phoenix eyes flashed with a wise light. The more Bailey Hong Zhuang spoke, the more serious her expression became. He's choosing someone. Possession. Bewitching's gaze turned cold. This was a powerful cultivator's method. Some cultivator souls had managed to escape after they had fallen. Furthermore, they had managed to preserve their souls by coincidence. At a time like this, as long as they could find a suitable cultivator and possess their body, it would be a form of rebirth. Aside from this situation, there was another possibility. Some cultivators had reached a certain level of cultivation and could no longer break through their shackles. As their lifespan neared its end, they would choose to use this method to extend their lifespan. Regardless of which method it was undoubtedly extremely cruel. At this moment, everyone understood what was going on. Why had they been so safe ever since they had arrived here? It must be because this cultivator was only left with his soul. Furthermore, no one had entered the ancient battlefield for many years. When a soul has not found a host for a long time, its power would gradually weaken. Hence, when they were unconscious, the soul could not do anything to them. The only way was for them to actively touch the soul's owner's belongings. Only then would the soul be able to seize the opportunity to invade their body. Furthermore, with the addition of this illusion, everything would become very simple. However, any possession would require the cultivator to actively touch his belongings. Otherwise, he would not be able to approach them directly. Actually, as long as there's a storage ring, no one would be able to resist the urge to touch it, right? Xiao Hei was a little puzzled. Wasn't this a little superfluous? Perhaps this soul has some special fetish. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. There's another possibility. The illusion can increase his power. However, this is not the most important thing now. We must not let Yin Shay and the others touch this storage ring. Otherwise, based on the strength of their souls, they would not be able to resist this old monster. Her exquisite and dazzling face was filled with anxiety and worry. Once a body has been possessed, even if the physical body remains the same, the soul would have been replaced. It would no longer be a familiar person. After Bailey Hongzhuang analyzed the situation, everyone became nervous. Bailey Yin Shay and the others were already very close to the bed. If it didn't stop them now, it would really be too late. Yin Shay, wake up! Bailey Hongzhuang stood in front of Bailey Yin Shay and shook his body, trying to wake him up. No matter what, she couldn't let anything happen to Yin Shay. Wenyin, wake up! This is an illusion. Bewitching walked to Jiang Wenyin's side. In his eyes, Jiang Wenyin was a close friend who he could entrust his life to. At a time like this, he absolutely could not watch Jiang Wenyin die. Xiao So also desperately pulled Jun Lingxuan. She didn't know whether Bailey Hongzhuang's analysis was correct or not, but the risk was too terrifying. This situation was even more terrifying than death, because no one knew what the other party would do with their body. Chapter 5774. No matter how hard they tried to wake them up, it was to no avail. This illusory realm was simply too powerful. Their tiny efforts were completely useless. Most importantly, as the group tried to forcefully stop them, a restrictive spell suddenly appeared. They couldn't even touch their bodies. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang immediately attacked the restrictive spell, only to find that it was completely useless. Her power only caused a few imperceptible ripples on the restrictive spell before dissipating into nothingness. Damn it! Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but curse. Her icy face was filled with urgency. Yin Shay and Jiang Wenyin didn't have anyone they liked. Under these circumstances, it was simply too difficult to resist. Just the thought of watching this happen right before their very eyes was simply unbearable. Ling and Deep Beichin also tried to break the restrictive spell without any hesitation. However, even after combining everyone's strength, it was still to no avail. What do we do now? Ling couldn't help but look at Bailey Yin Shay. Although they had many conflicts on a daily basis, she didn't feel good when she thought about what might happen to this guy next. Bailey Hongzhuang was silent. The other party was very powerful. Under these circumstances, they couldn't do anything at all. In the next instant, Bailey Hongzhuang took out pills and handed them to Ling and Di Beichin. We can't think of anything for the time being. The only thing we can do is to recover as soon as possible. Di Beichin's expression darkened. He understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. If they really couldn't do anything, then the only thing they could do was to recover as soon as possible. Once the other parties succeeded in taking over their bodies, they would all be in great danger. Xiao Hei, you and Ling check around to see if there's a way out. Di Beichin and I will think of a way to wake them up from the illusory realm. All right. Xiao Hei and Ling immediately began to look around. They had originally thought that this was a good place, but now it seemed to be a completely evil place. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to use the power of light to break the illusion, but her current state was not enough. She had to take out the holy maiden crystal. From a moment the saintess crystal appeared, a rich light energy bloomed, illuminating the surroundings even more. The moment Xiao So saw the saintess crystal, her eyes flashed with a complicated light. She was undoubtedly very familiar with the saintess crystal. She had also seen the saintess crystal in the past few years. Originally, he thought that the saintess crystal would be given to him in the end. Who would have thought that it would fall into the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Hongzhuang channeled her power into the Saintess Crystal, and the Saintess Crystal's light energy became even denser. When the light bloomed, everyone noticed that Bai Li Yin-Shay and the others' faces flashed with a hint of struggle, as if they were affected by something. Bailey Hongzhuang's face lit up. It seemed that the power of light was indeed helpful in this situation. As long as everyone could wake up from the illusion, the other party would not be able to take over their body successfully, and they would be able to leave safely. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it was effective, it was fine. Bailey Hongzhuang used the power of light, hoping to completely wake everyone up from the illusion. Just as everyone saw the light, they suddenly realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had stopped moving. "Wife, what's wrong?" Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with concern. His expression changed when he saw her. Chapter 5775. Wifey. Bewitching called out again. Bailey Hongzhuang still didn't respond. At this moment, Bewitching confirmed his guess. Hongzhuang has also fallen into an illusion. How can this be? Xiao So was dumbfounded. They had finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel. If Bailey Hongzhuang had also fallen into an illusion, they would really be at their wits' end. The owner of this place is more powerful than we thought. It's obvious that he's very skilled in creating illusions. Because there's no way to stop Hongzhuang, he let her fall into an illusion. Bewitching turned to look at Ling Er. "Have you found a way out?" Ling Er shook her head. Her pretty face was full of anxiety. "No, this place is completely sealed off. We can't find any exit at all. This place is really too strange. While I walked in that direction earlier, I realized that we couldn't go back to where we came from," Xiao He said in a low voice. "This place is really strange." Xiao Bai looked around, unwilling to let go of any chance that there might be a trap. It believed that there was definitely a way out. They just hadn't found it yet. Bewitching's expression darkened. It looked like the owner of this place had made up his mind to keep all of them here. Yin Shay and the others are getting closer and closer to the bed. We can't stop them. Ling Er's face was pale. This situation was really too despairing. It seemed like there was no way out at all. Xiao So also looked like she was about to break down. They might really have to die. At this moment, Bai Li Yin Shay suddenly stopped in his tracks. "Look, Bai Li Yin Shay's expression has changed," Xiao Bai exclaimed as she pointed at him. Hearing this, everyone turned to look. As expected, Bai Li Yin Shay didn't continue forward. How is this possible? Xiao So was stunned. If she had not seen Jiang Wenyin and Jun Lingxuan still moving forward, she would not have believed that Bai Li Yin Shay could break through such an illusion. Bewitching's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang were too deep, so he could not be bewitched by other women. But Bai Li Yin Shay did not seem to have a sweetheart at all. How did he break the illusion? After Bai Li Yin Shay broke out of the illusion, he quickly regained his consciousness. His reaction was the same as Bewitching's. "What's going on?" Xiao He quickly recounted everything that had happened and asked in confusion, "Yin Shay, how were you able to resist temptation?" Bai Li Yin Shay was stunned. He subconsciously glanced at Ling Er, only to discover that Ling Er was also looking at him. His eyes flickered as he said, "She's not my type." As soon as he said this, everyone looked doubtful. If he didn't like such a beauty, then what type did he like? No matter what, it's a good thing that you broke the illusion. Bewitching patted Bai Li Yin Shay's shoulder. His gaze then landed on Jiang Wenyin. "Now I'm just worried about Wenyin. I hope he can break the illusion." "Master should be able to break it soon, right?" Xiao He asked worriedly. Bewitching nodded slightly. Hongzhuang is a light attribute cultivator, so it's relatively easy for her to break the illusion. Furthermore, she knows that there's an illusion here, so she should be able to break it soon. With regard to this, he completely believed in Bailey Hongzhuang's ability. In fact, Ling Er and Bai Li Yin Shay also thought so. Master had always been rational, so it was not difficult for him to break the illusion. Chapter 5776. Kacha. With a crisp sound, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. The illusion had been completely dispelled. "Wife, you're awake?" Di Beichen immediately noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's movements. His handsome face was filled with joy. He knew that Hongzhuang would definitely be able to dispel the illusion. Moreover, with the Holy Maiden crystal in her hands, the illusion would not affect her much. However, he did not expect her to be so fast. It was beyond his imagination. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "It's all thanks to the Holy Maiden crystal. The illusion did not affect me much." In the next moment, she noticed Bai Li Yin-che and asked in surprise, "Bai Li Yin-che, you dispelled the illusion?" Bai Li Yin-che smiled faintly. "Although it was a little slow, I managed to dispel it in the end." "That's good." Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved and turned to look at Jiang Wenyin and Jun Lingxuan. It would be best if the two of them could dispel the illusion. However, if they could not, it would be troublesome. Perhaps all of them would have to stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang used the Holy Maiden crystal once again to display the power of light. Although the effect was not too great, it still had some effect. Just as he was about to sit on the bed, a look of struggle flashed across Jiang Wenyin's face. Then he woke up. "Wenyin, come back quickly!" Di Beichen hurriedly called out. Jiang Wenyin was just rejoicing when he heard Di Beichen's words. Although he did not understand what had happened, he immediately rushed back to everyone's side and looked ahead fearfully. What happened? The power of the Holy Maiden crystal was still being emitted. Everyone noticed that Jun Lingxuan's emotions were also somewhat affected. "Lingxuan, wake up quickly!" Xiao Shou hurriedly shouted. After seeing that everyone had regained their senses, Xiao Shou became even more anxious. Most importantly, all the men had resisted the temptation. Why was Jun Lingxuan the only exception? This made her feel particularly unhappy, but the most important thing at the moment was Jun Lingxuan's life, so she couldn't care about this for the time being. Jun Lingxuan had already sat on the bed, and his right hand touched the storage ring. Just as he was about to touch the storage ring, the Saintess crystal shone brightly, and Jun Lingxuan was also awakened from the illusion. "Jun Lingxuan, don't touch that ring." Di Beichen noticed that Jun Lingxuan's expression froze. He knew that Jun Lingxuan had exited the illusion and quickly reminded him. "Lingxuan, come back quickly. There's something wrong with that ring." Xiao Shou also shouted. Jun Lingxuan turned his head, looked at everyone looking at him, and then said to Xiao Shou with a chuckle, "So, how can you listen to them and not want such a good treasure? It's very likely that there's a soul there that will take over the body. Don't touch it." Jun Lingxuan looked at the ring in front of him and said with a chuckle, "Really? They can also judge this kind of thing? In short, don't touch it no matter what." In her view, the previous reaction of Bailey Hongzhuang and others didn't seem to be fake. What she wanted most was to leave here safely. As for the treasure, she didn't care. Jun Lingxuan's eyes flashed a trace of hesitation. He also felt a little strange about the situation at the moment, but the ring was placed in front of him, which was really too tempting. Chapter 5777. The two of them charged towards Jun Lingxuan in a flash. However, when they got close, they were suddenly bounced back by an invisible force. When they realized this, everyone was shocked. They were not surprised that such a situation would occur before the illusion was broken. However, now that the illusion has been broken, why was this happening? This sudden turn of events stunned everyone present. This was completely different from the previous situation. How could this be? Linger was puzzled. Countless thoughts flashed through Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. However, the most important thing now was to stop Jun Lingxuan. "Jun Lingxuan, don't touch that ring. Otherwise, you'll regret it." Jun Lingxuan chuckled. He did not believe Bailey Hongzhuang's words at all. "Don't try to lie to me. Only I've passed the test. This is my inheritance. If you want to take it away from me, there's no way." If Jun Lingxuan still had some doubts before, after seeing that everyone had been blocked, he gained a little more confidence. In the next moment, Jun Lingxuan's hand reached for the storage ring. "No!" Xiao Shou shouted. However, it was clearly too late. This was because Jun Lingxuan had already touched the ring. After picking up the ring, Jun Lingxuan sneered at everyone. Didn't you want to snatch this storage ring? Stop dreaming. This is my inheritance? Xiao Shou felt relieved after seeing that Jun Lingxuan was fine. She immediately glared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Could it be that these guys had been lying to her earlier? Inheritance. Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Wasn't it a romantic encounter? How could it be an inheritance? Jiang Wenyin nodded gently. The previous scene was indeed as you had described. However, there was a test after that. When I was undergoing the test, I felt a force, so I retreated and regained my consciousness. There's actually such a change? Linger was stunned. Had they guessed the beginning correctly but not the end? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. According to their judgment, there shouldn't be any problems with what they had guessed before, but the situation that happened later was indeed unexpected. Jun Lingxuan sneered. Loser. Say Wu, you have been deceived by them. Xiao Shou quickly walked to Jun Lingxuan's side, her face full of disgust. I didn't expect their acting skills to be so good. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say anything else. Although the situation in front of her was indeed beyond her expectations, this kind of assessment was really too strange. Jun Lingxuan, since you've obtained the inheritance, you should know where the exit is, right? Di Beichun turned to look at Jun Lingxuan, only to see a smug look on the latter's face. Jun Lingxuan sneered. I know, but why should I tell you? The heavens are really blind. Xiaobai shook her head and sighed. Such a good opportunity had fallen into Jun Lingxuan's hands. This was too difficult to accept. Wenyin, I've affected you. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little apologetic. If she hadn't affected Jiang Wenyin, perhaps this inheritance would have belonged to Jiang Wenyin. Hearing this, Jiang Wenyin chuckled. If it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not meant to be, don't force it. What's more, your original intention was to save me. I don't think this thing belongs to me. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others saw this, their hearts were also slightly warm. Jiang Wenyin being able to say such words was really touching. Chapter 5778. Ah, a shrill scream was heard. Jun Lingxuan, who was originally proud of himself, suddenly widened his eyes, and his expression was extremely ferocious. The sudden change shocked everyone present. They looked at Jun Lingxuan in shock, not knowing what was going on. Ah! Jun Lingxuan clutched his head crazily, the veins on his handsome face bulging. His expression was extremely terrified, and he struggled in pain like a ghost. Lingxuan, what's wrong? Xiao Shou hurriedly grabbed Jun Lingxuan's arm, her delicate face full of panic. What happened? What's wrong with you? However, Jun Lingxuan could not answer at all. He could only struggle in pain. In just a short period of time, he could not even stand. He rolled on the ground in pain, and his expression was horrified and ferocious. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, and their minds confirmed their previous guess. It seems that our judgment may not be wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichun with a trace of shock and horror. This powerful cultivator's methods are more brilliant than we thought, Di Beichun said in a low voice. As soon as he said this, Jiang Wenyin and the others completely understood. The other party had deliberately set up a trap. First, he used an illusion to directly lure everyone to take the ring. Then, perhaps because of the Saintess Crystal's influence, he had no choice but to set up an illusion for the test. This way, they would think that the storage ring was an inheritance and would not have any scruples when picking it up. As for why Jun Lingxuan was fine when he picked up the ring, it was because his spiritual power had not seeped into the storage ring. Just now, he had done so, and the possession had begun. Although everyone knew about the possession, it was the first time they had seen a real possession. Once the other party had carried out the possession, unless a powerful cultivator appeared to wipe out the other party's soul, it was obvious that with their strength, they could not deal with a powerful cultivator from the immortal region. Even if this person had been dead for many years, the power of his soul was still very terrifying. Let's find a way to get out of here. Di Beichun's expression turned solemn. Perhaps they still had a chance to leave this place before the other party succeeded in seizing the body. However, if the other party succeeded in seizing the body, it would definitely take everyone's lives. Everything here was set up by this person. Under such circumstances, it was too difficult for them to deal with this person. As for Jun Lingxuan stopping the other party from possessing his body, no one even considered this point. It was impossible. He couldn't possibly succeed. After everyone heard Bewitching's words, they didn't dare to delay any longer. They started to look around for a way to leave this place. Only Xiao Souwu sat beside Jun Lingxuan in a panic. She looked at the latter's painful expression, but there was nothing she could do to help. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't you have the Holy Maiden Crystal? Quickly help Ling's son. Xiao Souwu wiped away the tears on her face and rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang. She grabbed her arm tightly with both hands and looked frantic and anxious. Don't even think about running away. Quickly help him. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and flung Xiao Souwu's hand away. Xiao Souwu, we've already advised him, but he didn't listen. Have you forgotten how you acted just now? Now you have a nerve to ask me for help. Chapter 5779. After seeing Xiao Souwu's unreasonable appearance, everyone sighed in their hearts. The thickness of this guy's skin was simply amazing. Just a moment ago, she and Jun Lingxuan were still sneering at them, and now she was asking them to do all kinds of things in a commanding tone. Wasn't this a joke? In a situation, outsiders can't save him at all. Aren't you also good at light power? Why don't you try it yourself? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xiao Souwu in disgust. If you want to leave here, find the exit, otherwise, wait to be buried with him. Souwu, save me. Jun Lingxuan stretched out his hand and looked at Xiao Souwu in pain. Xiao Souwu quickly rushed to Jun Lingxuan's side. Jun Lingxuan, it will be fine. Get him out of your mind. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked around and found that the situation was just as Linger said before. This was a dead end, and there was no way to leave at all. How can there be no way? Jiang Wenyin looked around in disbelief. Wherever they came to a place, there must be a way. How could there be nothing? This place is really strange. Di Beichan turned his eyes to look at Jun Lingxuan and found that the latter's struggle was getting weaker and weaker. He immediately said in a deep voice, "The other party is about to succeed in seizing the body. If we can't find the exit, it will be really troublesome. Damn it, we actually came to such a broken place." Bali Yanche was annoyed. Judging from the current situation, there was only one person who knew the way to leave here, and that was the owner of this place. Obviously, the other party would not tell them. Xiren and the others wouldn't have encountered such a situation, right? That would be terrible. Bali Yanche couldn't help but think of the situation of Xiren and Shangguan Yingying at that time. They all came here listening to the zither sound. I don't think so. Di Beichan shook his head. The test at the lake is very difficult. If the other party wanted to possess the body, they wouldn't need to spend so much effort. If the requirements are too high, most people won't be able to enter. Naturally, he won't have the chance to possess someone. Then why is it like this here? Linger was puzzled. One was at the pavilion in the middle of the lake, while the other was at the bottom of the lake. There should be some kind of connection between the two. If I'm not wrong, the owner of this place is just using the pavilion as an opportunity. Because the pavilion in the middle of the lake was very eye-catching, any cultivator who came here would definitely think of a way to enter the pavilion. He arranged everything under the lake so that when cultivators appear, they could be swept into this place. It's much more convenient than other places. There were quite a number of cultivators earlier as well. Why weren't they swept down? Jiang Wenyin asked doubtfully. This did not seem to make sense. Bailey Hongzhuang said, "That's because he has requirements for the host he chooses. If the cultivator's physical quality was too poor, it meant that it would be extremely difficult for him to use this body to raise his cultivation to a higher level. When that happened, he would inevitably have to look for a new body. However, if he could find a good body directly, he wouldn't need to spend so much effort." At this moment, Jun Lingxuan, who was struggling, suddenly stopped. A devilish smile suddenly appeared on his handsome face. Chapter 5780. TSK, you guys are pretty smart. You've already figured everything out in such a short time. Jun Lingxuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with a faint smile. Originally, I had my eyes on this body, but it's a pity that even such a woman can't charm you. Following Jun Lingxuan's gaze, everyone realized that the person he had his eyes on was Bewitching. Bewitching's expression was slightly cold. Possession was something worse than death. At this moment, everyone understood that Jun Lingxuan was already dead. Even if the person in front of them looked exactly like Jun Lingxuan, he was not the real Jun Lingxuan. Xiao Sou stared blankly at the familiar, yet unfamiliar man in front of her. His appearance was still the same as before, and there was no change at all. However, his gaze and demeanor were slightly different. Most importantly, the way he looked at her was no longer as friendly and familiar as before. Her Jun Lingxuan was gone. His soul had been wiped out by this despicable guy in front of her. No! Xiao Sou screamed at the top of her lungs. She fell into paranoia and madness. She pulled Jun Lingxuan's clothes and shook him hysterically. You despicable guy! Quickly return Jun Lingxuan. Jun Lingxuan only glanced coldly at Xiao Sou and casually threw her aside. Bang! Xiao Sou's body fell heavily onto the wall and then slid down. Puffed. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Xiao Sou's expression collapsed and sorrowful. It was not easy for her and Jun Lingxuan's hearts to be connected, but now something like this happened. It was really hard for her to accept. Why was her life so bitter? She regretted it so much. Why didn't she see through everything earlier like Bailey Hongzhuang? Originally, she still had a chance to save everything, but she didn't think about it carefully at all, so she missed the best opportunity. If she had resolutely told Jun Lingxuan to give up instead of coveting such a reward, then this wouldn't have happened. And now, Jun Lingxuan was no longer the original Jun Lingxuan. If he used Jun Lingxuan's identity to do something out of line, what should she do? Jun Lingxuan stood up, shook his head, and stretched his body. A few cracking sounds could be heard, and then a happy smile appeared on his face. Although I didn't get the skin I wanted the most, this one isn't bad either. It's been a long time since I've experienced this feeling. The feeling of being able to move freely is wonderful. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at the guy in front of them cautiously. This guy didn't look like a good person at first glance. His way of doing things was strange. Congratulations, Senior. Bewitching cupped his hands and probed. We promise that we won't spread this matter. We hope that Senior will be magnanimous and let us live. Following Bewitching's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Jun Lingxuan with fear. Although the possibility was small, they still had to give it a try. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan raised his eyebrows, and his gaze swept over Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Do you think I'm afraid of you spreading the matter of me possessing your body? Who do you think you are? Jun Lingxuan's face turned cold, and his eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty, killing intent. You try to stop me from possessing your body in every way possible, and now you still want to leave here alive? His cold voice carried a boundless chill, making people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Chapter 5781. At this moment, everyone's hearts sank. It seemed that the other party had made up his mind and would not let them go. If they could not find a way to leave this place, death would be the only way out for them. Quick, think of a way to leave. Everyone could not help but take a few steps back. They were afraid that the other party would attack soon. Leave? Jun Lingxuan chuckled. Haven't you already looked for an exit? You can't find the exit at all. You'll all die here. As soon as he finished speaking, Jun Lingxuan immediately attacked everyone. A tyrannical aura could be felt, causing everyone's blood to surge. After the man had taken over Jun Lingxuan's body, his cultivation level was only at the Radiant Moon stage. However, the power of his soul was extremely terrifying. Just by sensing the power of his soul, everyone understood that they were no match for him. This person's power was simply too terrifying. How powerful were the cultivators of the ancient battlefield? Even so, everyone had died here and their souls had dissipated into nothingness. This person was able to maintain his soul's integrity in such an environment and was not destroyed even after so many years. His power must have been extremely terrifying when he was alive. Although he was restricted by Jun Lingxuan's body and could not unleash his full power, his future achievements would definitely be extremely terrifying if he was given some time. At this moment, everyone was not only worried about their own safety, they were even more worried about what kind of changes Jun Lingxuan would bring to the upper realm if he were to leave this place. What would happen to the D family, the Lin family, and the Bailey family? It would be fine if he were to live his own life. However, if he were to return to the Jun family, it would be a huge disaster. Bang! Bewitching and Bai Li Yinshe were defeated in a single blow. Their opponent's spiritual power was too terrifying. Under such pressure, they could not unleash their powers at all. Are we all going to die here? Ling Er revealed her true form and attacked Jun Lingxuan with her dragon tail. Jun Lingxuan grabbed the dragon tail with a disdainful look in his eyes. The dragon clan is indeed not bad. However, after becoming a contract beast, your powers are nothing much. In the blink of an eye, everyone was severely injured. Don't struggle anymore. Isn't it better to die here quietly? If I hadn't brought you here, you would have died already. Jun Lingxuan chuckled. Who are you? Bailey Hongzhuang asked coldly. He chuckled and looked around casually. His face was full of joy. Since you're going to die anyway, I'll tell you. Remember my name? Qing Devil. Qing Devil. After hearing this name, everyone looked at the man in front of them. Devil, indeed, was somewhat compatible with his appearance. From now on, Jun Lingxuan doesn't exist anymore. Qing Devil laughed. So do you. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the Saintess crystal and injected all her energy into it. At this moment, there was no other way. Most importantly, there was a layer of mysterious restriction in this strange place. She could not bring everyone into the Chaos Ring. She could take out the items, but she could not leave. Bailey Hongzhuang could not figure it out. The situation gave her an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as if she was about to figure out something. Chapter 5782. This thing is not bad. The next moment, Qing Devil stretched out his hand, intending to grab the Saintess crystal directly. Bailey Hongzhuang held the Saintess crystal tightly. This thing was very important to her, and she couldn't allow it to be taken away by others. However, she also knew that it was too difficult for her to stop Qing Devil with her current strength. However, the situation was a little unexpected. After Qing Devil made his move, the Saintess crystal suddenly gave out a ray of light, which prevented him from taking the thing away. What? Qing Devil uttered in surprise. At the same time, another ray of dazzling light flashed, with a hint of cyan vaguely in this ray. Then, everyone felt that their injuries were healing rapidly under this ray of light. They were seriously injured in the lake. Except for Jun Lingxuan, Xiao Sou, and Jiang Wenyan, the others had only regained their ability to move, but their injuries were still not fully healed. Under the influence of this power, they found that their injuries were healing rapidly. Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised. She had always known that the Saintess crystal had healing effects, but she hadn't been able to master the method after studying it for such a long time. She didn't expect that she would find the method to use it in such a critical situation today. After Bewitching and the others recovered from their injuries, their combat strength also improved a lot. Before, their injuries were healed, and their opponents were much stronger than them, so they were no match for them at all. Now their injuries were healed. Although the gap between them was still obvious, they were better off now. It's useless, Qing Devil said coldly. As long as you die, this thing will still fall into my hands. Qing Devil didn't turn his eyes, but he noticed that everyone was determined to fight to the death. He shook his head and said, You really won't give up until all hope is gone. Then I'll send you to hell." As soon as he finished his words, Qing Devil suddenly attacked with his right hand. His first target was Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this, Di Beichen rushed up quickly and stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Qing Devil snorted, "You really love each other, but you can only be lovers in hell." Bang, bang, bang. Di Beichen faced the Qing Devil head-on. Even though Jun Lingxuan had just broken through to the Radiant Moon tier, the strength that the Qing Devil displayed was far greater than that. Bai Yin Che and the others didn't hesitate either. If they didn't try their best to stall the Qing Devil, they would all die here once they were defeated one by one. While attacking Qing Devil, Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about how to get out of here. It was too difficult to defeat the Qing Devil together. Running away was the only way to survive. Boom! Qing Devil's power suddenly exploded. His mind power spread out, and everyone was sent flying. Bang, bang. One by one, the figures smashed into the wall and fell to the ground, heavily injured. "Idiot!" Qing Devil looked down at them condescendingly and stretched his body. "I'll give you a quick death. If you don't want it, I can only let you know what pain is." In the next moment, Qing Devil stretched out his hand and grasped Bailey Hongzhuang's neck with an invisible force. "Let me go!" Bailey Hongzhuang was suspended in the air. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't get rid of the force at all. Di Beichen rushed up quickly, but he couldn't touch the force at all. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang struggling in pain, his heart was bleeding. Chapter 5783. At this moment, Di Beichen recalled the scene when he was practicing his sword on the river. He thought of Zhongli Mu's indomitable and boundless sword chi. He suddenly waved the sharp sword in his hand and gathered all his strength at the tip of the sword. He put aside all distracting thoughts and focused all his energy on the sharp sword. Almost at this moment, everyone was acutely aware that Di Beichen's energy had reached an unprecedented peak. Even Qing Devil, who had never taken Di Beichen seriously, couldn't help but change his expression at this moment, because he felt a sense of threat from this sword. How could this be? From Jun Lingxuan's soul, Qing Devil knew that these people were from the upper world, and this kind of sword chi should only appear in the immortal realm. How could the man in front of him reach such a level without any teacher? Swoosh! A bright and dazzling sword chi shot out from the tip of Di Beichen's sword. Even though they were far away, everyone could feel the terrifying sword chi. It was extremely sharp and indomitable. Even though the sharp sword wasn't pointed at them, they felt that their skin was about to split under the influence of the sword chi. Bai Yin Che and the others looked at Di Beichen in amazement. They didn't expect Di Beichen to be able to use such a sword move. This kind of momentum and power, even though it was not as powerful as Zhongli Mu's, was still outstanding. Qing Devil had to dodge the sword chi, so he loosened his control over Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang fell to the ground, gasping for breath. If it wasn't for Beichen's help, she really wouldn't have been able to keep her life. When she looked up again, she found a wound on Qing Devil's face. Blood was flowing out from the wound, and his expression became more and more sinister. "I didn't expect you to be so powerful that you could hurt me." Qing Devil looked at Di Beichen coldly. "I never show mercy to those who hurt my face. You're dead meat." His pitch-black eyes filled with endless killing intent and threat. Azure Demon's figure flashed, rushing towards Bailey Hongzhuang. This kind of killing intent was far stronger than before. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also in a panic. They all picked up their swords and tried to use the swordsmanship that they had been practicing for a while. Although it was only one move, it was extremely powerful. After Jiang Wenyan saw Di Beichen display that move, his heart was full of shock. If this move was aimed at him, then he would not be able to avoid it at all. What he did not expect was that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had actually learned this trick. This was too unexpected. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were practicing together. The Azure Demon naturally did not dare to be so careless after suffering once. He would not be able to accept it if his face was hurt again. Then they found that their bodies were confined by a powerful force, and they couldn't move at all. Qing Devil grabbed Di Beichen's neck tightly. His gloomy eyes were like glaciers in the North Pole. "I want you to die miserably." Di Beichen tried his best to resist. His opponent's spiritual strength was too terrifying. He felt that the Azure Demon was probably in existence on the same level as Senior Yu. The moment Di Beichen was controlled, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart tightened. An indescribable fear spread in her heart. This feeling was even more terrifying than when she was facing death. She couldn't accept Di Beichen dying in front of her. Chapter 5784. I can't die here. This thought kept echoing in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. Get out of here. The only way is to get out of here. Everyone attacked Qing Devil. Even if they knew that they couldn't change the outcome, they had to do it. The atmosphere became tragic. Everyone was ready to risk their lives. They didn't want to be born in the same year and month, but they wanted to die in the same year and month. It was not the worst, ending if they could die here together. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang flew backward again and spat out a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. Her pretty face was as pale as a piece of paper. The despair from the bottom of her heart made her collapse. The people in front of her were the people she cherished the most. Were they all going to die here today? She couldn't help but look at the chaos ring in her hand. Why couldn't it bring them in this time? Why? Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on the red zither in front of her. Something seemed to break in her mind. She suddenly found a way to solve the problem that she couldn't figure out. That's right. That's the problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She finally understood everything. It wasn't that the chaos ring lost its effect, but that she was in the dreamland now. They had been in the dreamland since they entered here. It wasn't just one dreamland. It was the overlapping of many dreamlands. Until now, they were still in the dreamland and hadn't really gone out. That was why the chaos ring didn't respond. The zither was the most likely to break the dreamland, because it was the sound of the zither that attracted them here. No matter how real the dreamland was, there would be a way to break it. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang dragged her seriously injured body and rushed to the zither when Qing Devil wasn't paying attention to her. After noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's movement, Qing Devil became anxious. He rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang directly, leaving Di Beichen and the others behind. At the same time, Di Beichen and the others finally noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. For a moment, they didn't even understand the use of the zither. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel the terrifying attack behind her, but she didn't turn around to look, even if the attack was about to land on her. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was to smash this zither. Only by smashing the zither would they be able to leave this huge illusion. Even if she died, it was still good that someone was still alive. Crack! With a crisp sound, the zither fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Almost at the same time that the zither was broken, everyone felt that the surrounding environment was rapidly collapsing. It was no longer the same as before. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes as if she had already accepted her fate. The sky was blue, and white clouds floated in the sky. Bailey Hongzhuang did not feel the terrifying attack. Instead, she fell into a warm embrace. It was Di Beichen. Just from that familiar aura, she knew that it was Di Beichen. Oh my God, am I hallucinating? We're out. Jiang Wenyan looked at the strange and wonderful environment around him in shock. This sudden change made him feel incredulous. 1 second ago, they were still in the shadow of death. How could they be safe now? Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. Looking at the blue sky, white clouds, and green grass in front of her, she had never felt so happy before. Chapter 5785. Honey, we're all right. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. His handsome face was full of tenderness. You saved all of us. Bailey Yin Che and the others came forward. At this moment, everyone was immersed in the joy of surviving a disaster. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't broken the zither at the last moment, they would have gone to the netherworld. It's really hard to imagine. I thought I was going to die. Jiang Wenyin couldn't hide the surprise on his face. What happened today was really unbelievable. Hongzhuang, you saved me twice. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't stopped him with the help of the Saintess Crystal, he probably wouldn't have been able to resist the temptation of the storage ring. Once he touched it, he would be the one who was possessed. Thinking back, he felt that it was really terrible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Fortunately, my judgment was right. Otherwise, I would inevitably feel guilty. Jiang Wenyin waved his hand. I really owe it to you this time. Speaking of which, you are really amazing. You can even make such a judgment. If Jun Lingxuan didn't believe you, he wouldn't be in such a situation now. Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Jun Lingxuan had always been their enemy. They originally wanted to find an opportunity to kill him. However, they didn't expect that Jun Lingxuan would disappear in such a way. Sister, how did you think of breaking the zither to save us? Until now, Bali Yanche was still a little confused. He didn't understand what had happened before. Everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. They were also very curious about this. In fact, when the Qing devil appeared, I always felt that there was something wrong that we ignored. At the critical moment, I knew that there was only one way to survive, and that was to leave here. I thought that the Qing devil was just a soul, but the place where we were was extremely beautiful. Logically speaking, it was impossible for a soul to do this. In addition, we've seen that beauty before, but then that beauty appeared in your illusion. This doesn't make sense in itself. The only explanation was that we were already in an illusion from the moment we entered the sleeping chamber, and the illusion that appeared after that was the superposition of several illusions. The Qing devil is really good at illusions. Even with the Saintess Crystal, I was still troubled for such a long time. After listening to the explanation, everyone finally understood what was going on. This kind of illusion technique really made people gasp in amazement and was too shocking. Now that I have figured it out, I feel that I was too stupid before. How could I not figure out such a simple thing? Qing devil is really too clever. Jiang Wenyin sighed. His opponent's methods were truly impossible to guard against. Because it was too real, he never thought that he had entered an illusion from the very beginning. No matter what, we managed to keep our lives. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. Although they had experienced a lot of risks, their lives were saved in the end. If they hadn't experienced this, perhaps they wouldn't have been able to return to the shore at the bottom of the lake. Overall, they had escaped danger. Master, why is Xiao So missing? Xiao He suddenly asked in confusion. Chapter 5786. Previously, everyone was immersed in joy. Besides, Xiao So was not their friend, so they did not notice her disappearance. Now that Xiao He mentioned it, they realized that Xiao So did not come out with them. Logically speaking, everyone should have come out when the illusion is broken. Why didn't Xiao So come out? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She did not have a good impression of Xiao So. It was not a bad thing for her to disappear. However, the current situation was indeed unexpected. Before I left, I heard Xiao So scream, but I didn't take it to heart. Did Nan Wei fail to escape at the last moment? Linger asked. That's possible. At that time, Xiao So was the closest to Qing devil. Bali Yanche said thoughtfully. Forget it. Anyway, even if Xiao So comes out alive, she can't escape death. Why should we care? Bewitching looked calm. The conflict between them and Xiao So and Jun Lingxuan was getting worse and worse. It had already reached the point where only one of them could survive. Although the incident this time was somewhat out of their expectations, it was undeniable that the two of them had completely disappeared. Why didn't Qing devil come out? Xiaobai was a little confused. Since it was an illusion, they might be together after it was broken. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. I don't know, but I think this illusion should be very important to him. When I threw the zither, he looked very nervous. Maybe he was also affected by the destruction of the illusion. That's why he didn't come out. Regarding this, no one asked any more questions. The Azure Fiend's illusions were beyond their reach. It would be impossible for them to find out the reason behind it. Now that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou are no longer a threat, a more difficult Qing devil has appeared. I don't think the situation is optimistic. Bai Lianche said in a low voice with a hint of worry on his handsome face. Just by looking at Qing Devil's appearance, one could tell that this guy was definitely not a low-key person. Azure Demon. Just based on this name alone, he probably wasn't a nobody in the Immortal region. If he went to the Immortal realm, he would definitely turn the situation upside down. Hearing Bai Lianche's words, everyone's hearts sank. This was the problem they were most worried about now. Qing Devil must be very angry that they escaped this time. If they met again, he would try his best to kill them. They escaped this time because the illusion was destroyed. But if they met him again, it would be very difficult for them to escape. In fact, Qing Devil's strength is not very strong now. After all, he has just occupied Jun Lingxuan's body and needs some time to adapt. What's more, although his soul strength is powerful, his cultivation is based on Jun Lingxuan's cultivation. It would be great if someone could kill Azure Demon at this moment. Ling Er's pretty face had a trace of alienation and indifference as usual. Once he develops, it will be really troublesome. Now we don't know where Qing Devil is. The only thing we can do is to pray that he will die soon. Jiang Wenyin shrugged helplessly. Just the thought of facing the Azure Demon again made him feel uncomfortable all over. Forget it. Let's take one step at a time. Di Beichen waved his hand to let everyone relax. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.